The city
Give me your mic.
that has seen it all ain't seen nothing yet. Now, Jason's gone uptown.
There is a maniac trying to kill us. Welcome to New York.
Friday the 13th, Part 8. Jason Takes Manhattan. Rated R. Starts Friday, July 28th at theaters everywhere.
Welcome back to a very special Shocktober, a super Shocktober episode of ReconCinemation. I'm your host, John Diner.
I'm David Munchak.
I'm Brent Hutchins.
And this is the podcast that takes a look back at some of our favorite films from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and we're checking out how they hold up today. And like I said, it's a very special episode because it is part 2 of our super Shocktober. We are going to be bringing a couple more episodes after this one, but it is a tradition to cover every Friday the 13th movie as we approach Friday the 13th, and that time has come again. Who's excited about it? David, I know you are.
Sure am. Here we go. Eighth one of our series.
For the 8th time. Here we are.
You sold me on the excitement. I'm there with you. I can feel it pulsing.
This would have been 9th, but we didn't get our schedules together. I think we had to redo.
We had back
true.
in year 2 we had to air a repeat of the first Friday the 13th. So we should have been covering Jason Goes to Hell, but we're not. We are covering the final entry of the series by Paramount Pictures. It's Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan.
Cue the New York theme song right now. Let's go.
No, legally you can't do that, as they learned.
Yeah,
fair.
Seriously,
that's fair enough. Is that still true? Jeez, man, what's the statute of limitations
Who
on
knows?
that?
Yeah, and you can check out, we've covered the first 7 films in the series, so you can check those out in the archives. They're at ReconCinemation.com. And I always find it interesting. It's a study that watching this series evolve and change, and how it's gone from the small picture that it was for the first film, and how it's evolved all the way through the 1980s, and the scope of the horror genre, and how it's changed throughout that decade. And here we are, we're all the way at 1989, and the series has gone through quite a number of changes, and it really barely looks like the first film anymore. So I always like, in kind of digging in and seeing how these movies got made and what the problems were and what it was like behind the scenes, especially with a major studio behind it, but kind of not behind it. So I'm excited to talk about this one. This is a huge one.
is it huge? I mean, it's
Massive. It's
Big
Apple massive.
It's interstate. It's interstatal.
It is, but like this is probably one of the more well-known entries in the series. It's probably one of the more popular ones, not necessarily the best, not necessarily the biggest moneymaker, which it certainly wasn't. But I think that just the gimmick, the Manhattan gimmick, was such a popular move.
Yeah, it was so ridiculous. How do you not hear about it? I mean, they spoof it too, and it's kind of a Saturday Night Live skit. Not that I think that they ever actually really did that, but it's that kind of ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, overall, like, do you guys like this one? Not like this one? We'll come back at the end, but what do you think?
This is as good as any other movie of the series.
No, come
on. It's
on.
not like top 3, but it's as good as all the other ones. They're
The fact that you that you say it's not in the top 3 already.
It's like the rest of them.
weekends. It's the rest after the top three.
I guess it's like it's all these dumb movies. That's like the other
Oh
four.
my god,
David,
There's a bottom
so-
five. Oh, they're all the same.
what would you say?
This
Could
one's
you
in New York,
pinpoint?
baby.
Could you pinpoint what your top three are at this moment? Being that
3D.
you're seeing all these for the first time.
3D
3D.
can't beat 3D. 2's pretty good, and I don't know. I don't even remember.
Oh my god,
The Corey Haim one, I guess. Yeah,
The Corey
Well, we're-
Feldman one.
Corey Feldman. Corey Feldman.
The never released Corey Haim.
That'd be great if Haim picked up the series.
Yeah,
Imagine if Haim and Feldman teamed up against Jason.
That would have been a
Yeah.
perfect. They should have made a buddy comedy, like Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein. It should have been like the Coreys meet Jason,
yeah.
and it's just a wacky adventure in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Jason's trying to kill the Coreys.
They could have done that at the opening of part 6 with the isn't that when they have Corey Feldman flash the
That's 5. Yeah.
Oh, it's 5 where he's back in the graveyard. Okay, yeah. So they could have done it then.
It's
Anyway.
funny how, we've done a deep dive into each one of these films. And then when we talk about it in a general sense, it's like so easy to mix them all up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They blur together. Well, I mean, John, you've mentioned it several times. Typically when we watch these, we watch them in chunks of more than one. And so they do start to kind of blur when you only view them in marathons.
Yes.
It starts to get a little bit like, okay, which one's what? And that's what makes this one so great, because there's no mistaking which one this one is, because
Exactly.
it's Jason in New York.
Yeah.
Come on.
For a half hour.
Yeah, for a half hour. It's Jason on his way to New York mostly.
It's a lot
And
of
then-
Jason traveling to New York.
Yeah.
A little
Yeah.
bit of him in New York.
That's fun.
We'll get into that of why that is and how this movie, came out the way it did. But before we get started on this, let's do our new game, 6 Degrees of ReconCinemation. David, you got a movie for us that Brent and I are going to connect? Pick any movie, and we'll connect it to Jason Takes Manhattan by the end of the show.
I was trying to think of what is a New York movie, what's a contemporary New York movie of this one, and I came up with When Harry Met Sally. Came out the same year,
When Harry Met Sally.
1989. New York may as well be another character in the film.
There you go. There's
It
your,
always
there's
is.
your connection.
New York City. It's
New
always
York's always the star.
it's always
It's
the
that
stuff.
it's the rat that comes out of the toxic waste barrel.
Yeah,
That rat's definitely in one.
that we
Harry Met
linger on that shot for way too long.
Yeah, the rat really had something to say.
So I don't know. Good luck, because oh boy, there's
Okay.
oh boy,
The wheels are spinning already.
churn it.
Don't you worry.
Yeah, my wheels are rusty, but I'll get them going.
All right. So at the end of the episode, we'll come back. We're going to connect When Harry Met Sally to Jason Takes Manhattan. Let's see how we make that connection.
do it.
All right. So Brent, let's rewind. Let's take us back to July 28th, 1989. What's happening in the world? What's happening in film and sports, entertainment? What's set the table? Bring us back there.
He said July 28th, 1989, George W. Bush Sr. is president. And the kind of top songs of the time are Toy Soldiers by Martika. Is that how you say that? Martika.
I think so.
Could be right. Yeah.
Yeah. If I'm saying that wrong, leave a comment. I'd love to hear about it. You've also got some Madonna. Express Yourself is pretty popular right now, as well as Prince's song Bat Dance. That's one of the tops in the charts. You've got kind of top movie at the box office is Turner and Hooch. And on TV, kids are watching Alvin and the Chipmunks, 21 Jump Street. Those are all on at the time. And then let's see what other Quantum Leap was on at this time. That's one of my favorites. So give it a little shout out for Sam Beckett. But yeah,
David, you're a giant Quantum fan, aren't you?
I am.
Yeah.
The character Sam Beckett recently celebrated a birthday as of this recording, so it's
Happy birthday, Sam.
happy birthday, Sam Beckett, fictional character Sam Beckett.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar announced his retirement in 1989. Yeah, 1989, not a whole lot of news that I haven't given before in this kind of general region. So it's difficult to find new and unique things. But I will say that just a little bit after this movie, the first Game Boy was released in North America. And so that, I'm going to say, was the biggest news coming out of 1989, because at least for me, I played Tetris a shit ton in 1990 and 91.
Tetris and Paperboy, right? Didn't Paperboy come with Game Boy?
Oh, did it? Man,
I feel like it did.
You're talking
It came with Paperboy? Maybe at one point.
I thought it came with
I think
Tetris.
when I got it,
I thought it came with
when
Tetris.
I got it, it came with Paperboy.
Yeah.
Oh,
Nice.
maybe what was it? Tetris. It was Tetris. You're right.
Yeah, I think it came with Tetris. That was like the whole.
It was a Tetris
whole
machine.
deal.
Do you know how many moms were playing Tetris on the Game Boy?
Holy shit!
There were a
Mine
lot of
was
moms playing Tetris.
14.
More than that.
Okay.
More than that on your block.
I'm excited to talk about this one because it is, as you just mentioned, in the year 1989, and we've covered some films from 1989. We have an episode looking at the summer of 1989, which you can dig out in the archives at ReconCinemation.com. But there's so many big movies that came out that year, all year long. There's, it's one of those years like 1982 and 1939, if we want to go back that far, that there's just like a lot of big movies that happen to come out that year. And so there's so many to talk about. And I'm glad we're going back to it again. But in particular, let's talk about the state of the horror genre in 89, which is not so good. As you've got huge movies like Batman and Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade and Back to the Future 2 and Lethal Weapon 2 and on and on and on, big movies coming out. The horror genre's really kind of taken a nosedive at this point, and they've really exploited, as we've covered before.
But for like an 11, 12-year-old kid walking through the aisles of the video store, like, dude, this is a great time for horror movies because they're all really terrible and not super smart, but like great cover art and a lot of fun for fledgling horror fans, I'll say.
Well, let me take that one step further. Where they're not doing well is theatrically. In cinemas, totally tanking. Most of them are doing really badly, and we're deep into sequels for a lot of these series. Home video, though, you're absolutely right, Brent, because as our age group experienced, walking the aisles of our video stores and just being mesmerized by those really like graphic and memorable horror movie covers of that day, the VHS covers. Video rental sales were like through the roof. But so it's like they are making money in a way, but in a different way than I think they had planned. And this is around the time that they're learning that like, okay, horror may not do so well theatrically, but we can make a lot of money on home video. So, I mean, I'm going to throw out a bunch of names here of all horror movies that came out in 1989. So buckle up. 976 Evil, Amityville 4. Yeah, you had that's a great poster, actually. Yeah.
That poster.
Chopper Chicks in Zombie Town, Chud 2. Brent, you're a big Chud fan.
Yeah.
The Fly 2. Halloween 5, which is the Revenge of Michael Myers. We covered that one. You can hear it in the archives at ReconCinemation.com. The Howling 5, Leviathan, Nightmare on Elm Street Part 5, The Dream Child, which we will be covering in the future, Parents, Pet Sematary, The Puppet Master, Wes Craven's Shocker, Sleepaway Camp 3, Stepfather 2, Society, which is a film covered by our friend E.K. Wimmer on his podcast, Laser Graves. Not only Toxic Avenger 2, but also Toxic Avenger 3.
Trome is really pumping them out, for sure.
Yeah. And Warlock, starring the late great Julian Sands.
Yeah, I'll say Pet Sematary, Puppet Master, and Shocker. I was pretty excited for all of those. I thought Pet Sematary was kind of a big deal when it came out.
It was Stephen. Anything
wrong,
with Stephen King's name was big at that time, and now.
Yeah, and who was the kid in that? The little kid.
Little kid. Is that Milo something?
Yeah.
No, is that the
He's
kid?
terrifying. That scene underneath the bed where he slashes the dude's Achilles is terrifying.
So is that Miko Hughes? The kid who was
Hughes, maybe.
He was the little kid for like 15 years in everything.
Yeah, exactly.
From Full House to Pet Sematary to Nightmare on Elm Street 7.
Was he in Nightmare on Elm Street 7?
Yeah, he's Heather Langenkamp's son in Nightmare 7.
Oh man, that's right. We got to get all right. That's
we'll
on
get
the
there.
horizon.
We're working our way there.
Yep.
Okay, David. Why don't you what's happening in Friday the 13th Part 8? Jason Takes Manhattan. Can you sum it up for us?
This movie, guys. This movie, written by Rob Hedden, and Victor Miller, directed by Rob Hedden. This is one of the bonkers ones of the series. Jason Voorhees once again rises from the grave. This time it's the watery grave where we last met, or we saw him go down underneath the deck, right, chained, and he rises again, sets his sights upon a graduating senior class that they're taking a celebratory cruise from Camp Crystal Lake to Manhattan Island, New York. It's a big old boat commission to travel whatever that river is. and it's pretty standard horror slasher fare, while teens and their adult companions just keep turning up dead. And then just wait till Jason arrives in the Big Apple, because oh boy, people be dying.
People be dying.
This is the Jason on a boat. This is Jason on a boat. It's Speed 2 cruise control, really.
Exactly. Yeah. Just a little more motor, like jet skis and motorboats or whatever.
Yeah. Luckily, there's barely any water sports in this movie.
Yeah. Not much.
So that's just the wacky. I mean, what else can you say? It's Jason's back, but oh man, new elements to excite us all.
They tried. They tried.
Well, they were handcuffed a little bit.
Yeah, we'll come back to that in a minute of how the script originally was written and kind of how it evolved to what we saw on the screen. But when was the first time you guys saw this? Brent, home video, or did you catch it in the theater?
Oh, it was home video. Yeah, I think I did, again, like a marathon, actually. I think I rented I want to say I rented Friday the 13th Part 7 and 8 to watch them back to back, because as we mentioned in that other podcast, or I did, Part 7 I was a big fan of, and so I wanted to rewatch that before watching Part 8, and made a whole afternoon of it. Biked down to the video store, got them, came home. For whatever reason, the video store at this point was already they were, totally on board with renting these movies to me, because I had been in there so much with my parents, where my parents yeah, okay, it's fine, just let him get it. And so went home, watched them, and just watched them by myself, actually, at the house. So
whoa.
But
and were you scared?
No, these never scared me, really.
I know.
But I also thought it was bananas, and was like, what the hell is this little kid kind of vibe going on? Like, the whole supernatural aspect of this at this point, there was definitely a supernatural aspect to Jason Voorhees, but the going back to his childhood kind of thing threw me for a bit of a loop.
Mm-hmm. David, what about you? First time view this viewing, or had you seen this one before?
I don't know where and how I saw the last 10 minutes of this movie, but every frame of it is I must have paused it on cable at one point and be like, oh, how'd they kill him in this one? Like something like that. but for the most part, I've only seen it for this podcast. So first time view, more or less. Yeah. It was a surprise to be like, oh, I've seen this. I remember that the whole acid being expunged from these sewers of Manhattan every night at midnight. Like, okay, yeah, like, yeah, it's like they got to get him in the acid bath. So,
toxic waste and acid was like a huge thing.
Toxic waste is huge
in the late 80s. Like it was the cause of so many. It was like deformed like and or toxic Avengers or whatever. I mean, it's everywhere.
It's like
toxic waste was a huge thing, and we talked about in one of our recent movies as well that it had become such an issue, a public issue at this point. So you're seeing it pop up in movies all over the place. Like Ninja Turtles had it too, right?
Yeah, all over. I mean, Return of the Living Dead. I mean, here was it Alligator and
Alligator? Yeah.
Chud, and I mean, it's just everywhere. Like it's just
yeah. You could argue the snake from Hard Ticket to Hawaii.
Was
a product of the toxic waste, right?
We've been talking toxic waste all year long, and we didn't even realize it.
Yeah.
It's toxic time in Tinseltown.
So the first time I saw this movie, I rented it with my friend Eamon, who's a regular listener to this podcast. We really got into horror movies. I think by the time we saw it, it was 1990, so when it came out on video, so sometime during that year. And we watched it in the basement, and I was actually scared only of the opening part. For some reason, him climbing up on the boat with the two teenagers in the beginning, for some reason that got to me, and I don't know why. Like no other part of a Jason or Friday the 13th film except for bits of the first one ever really got to me for some reason, and it doesn't anymore. It just did when I was 10. So but that was like we rented this one like over and over and over, and we saw it many times. But then I didn't watch it again till Brent, till our college marathon back at the College of Santa Fe, when we had a weekend long party and at your residence, and one of the rooms we had a marathon going of all the Friday the 13th movies, and we played drinking games to it, and it was a wonderful time.
Yeah, by this time in the marathon, I wasn't there.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I was there, but I wasn't there.
Yeah, mentally you were elsewhere. Many of us were elsewhere, but
you're talking the 8th movie of the franchise. We've been franchising, or we've been drinking while watching. This is not going to go well for my memory.
Yeah, and I had at some point I acquired a really long poster it wasn't in our dorm room, but it was when I moved into the apartments on campus. I don't know how I ended up with that poster, but I had a Jason Takes Manhattan poster that was all crinkled and not taken care of, and I don't know whatever happened to it.
Door length?
The door length ones, yeah.
That rings a bell.
It was behind my door, so when you closed
it, I remember it. Yeah, I remember it from the apartments. Now that you mention it,
there's a good chance it's in my attic right now, but
there's a good chance it's still on the door in college.
Could be, yeah. All right, so let's kind of dig into where we are in the Friday the 13th series. This is the 8th film, and Paramount Pictures had been releasing these films and technically producing them, although it always kept the whole series at arm's length and really didn't get too involved, but was happy to take in all the money, but didn't want to really admit that it was it's one of its really major franchises, because the Friday the 13th series, as we've talked about, was one of its biggest moneymakers. And in years that it had down years, like this was one of the ones they could turn to, that they're going to show a profit no matter what. As the years went on, especially after the fifth film, those profits started to shrink. So even part 7, 6, 7, they all made money and made a lot of money, but they were making less each time.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're kind of floundering, especially when you're sitting there looking across the street and watching Freddy Krueger rake in money and his popularity just skyrocketing.
Yeah.
You know, like they're doing everything they possibly can to try and keep their franchise alive and gain momentum and compete with Freddy. And, you know, I mean, it's just, you know, like it, and you feel it in this installment. Like,
this
is a very really,
yep. This is the one that you really feel that impact, that not only we're competing with Freddy, who and Nightmare on Elm Street 4 had, you know, like a $49 million box office take, and compared to, I think, 19 that Friday the 13th Part 7 had. So, you know, you've got a lot of competition there. It's overkill, pun intended, from the whole horror genre to begin with, that people are getting tired of the slasher genre, and the MPAA's impact on the censorship of the films was really strong. So you're, like we've talked about in the last few films, you're barely getting to see the kills that was the reason people were going to see these movies. So they're starting to rely on more gimmicks, and, you know, part 6 being more of a satire of itself, and 7 being, you know, essentially Carrie meets Jason, and 8, we've got a new gimmick of taking him out of his element. So, you know, things are changing, and Paramount really is at the point where they're like, let's, you know, if this one isn't a hit, it's time to wrap it up and move on. So, and Michael Myers coming back too, although he did not have the impact that Freddy Krueger had at this moment.
Right.
So one of the initial ideas is a Freddy versus Jason movie, which is logical and really the movie everybody wanted to see.
Yeah, absolutely. But there's no benefit to New Line, right? Doing Freddy versus Jason.
Yeah, New Line held all the cards, and we talked about this in our Nightmare on Elm Street 4 episode, which was our most recent episode of this show. That they really didn't have to. Like, it wasn't much of a gain for New Line, that suddenly this smaller independent company held all the cards, and big old Paramount Studios really couldn't get that deal done. They're the ones who needed it. So
yeah,
eventually we would get Freddy versus Jason, but not until 2003. Although we'd get a little taste of it before then.
Just a little taste.
David, where do you would you have wanted to see a Freddy versus Jason movie? Would you, at this point, would you have been intrigued enough to see that?
I'd be intrigued, but only because, like, it's almost like that just sounds like a crazy idea, crossing over like two properties. It's that's the only I'm like, oh, can you do that? Can you have two different properties in the same movie? That's crazy. Even though, you know, I think Roger Rabbit was probably like blew my mind at the time. I'm like, what? Mickey and Bugs can't be in the same movie. They can't be talking to each other. This is wild.
It's still wild, by the way, that actually happened.
Yeah, for sure.
So the novelty of the crossover absolutely might have piqued my interest a little bit, but I wasn't really interested. Either. I remember reading about it in the early 90s, where there was like in some magazine about it, like, because talk had probably, you know, industry talk was probably going around and around about it, and then I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then, of course, it took another decade to come out, but I probably wasn't going to be like, oh, I want to see that. But
yeah, I don't know. So and for you, David, you know, like, to be fair, you're kind of a casual viewer of these movies. Like, you never really focused on seeing them much as a younger person, you know, like you see them now for the podcast. But I would say, for myself and for people that were fans of the franchise at this time, like, seeing Freddy versus Jason and at, you know, prior to 2003 would have been freaking awesome. Like to have that happen right now when Freddy's like kind of at the height of his popularity and Jason is definitely grasping at straws to try and get it, but it's like a changing of the guard. Like there's so many different kind of subplots that you could tie into that whole coming together. It would have been freaking rad. But you know, I get why New Line was like, no thanks, like we don't need it, we're killing it right now, and you guys are yesterday's news, so forget about it. And it wasn't, you know, like you said, until 2003 where they were both on the outs and they were like, well, okay, let's finally do this. And we got that movie.
In hindsight, you really could have done so much more with this franchise. If it wasn't for Paramount's rejection of these movies, you could have brought characters back. You could have had more of like some kind of emotional involvement from some of these guys. It was really just like they were so focused on just making it as cheap and fast as possible.
Cash grabs.
Yeah.
If they were more thoughtful about it, it could have been, I mean, it could have been pretty spectacular. I would say though, I mean, at this point, you know, even at the eighth turn, you're going to struggle, right? Like, I mean, and especially when you're fighting the battles that you are, because, you know, we've said this before, but Jason was known for being the slasher, being brutal, you know, that gore in the earlier movies were, you know, the part of what drew people to see them, similar to how the fantastic set pieces and things like that of Freddy Krueger were at this time. You know, like you had an uphill battle to have Jason survive that environment when really his bread and butter was making, you know, splitting people in half basically. Mm-hmm. And you're not going to do that. You know, I mean, there's several opportunities in this movie where the kills could have been much more captivating, you know, and they're just very easy and
they're very
simple.
tame.
Yeah. I mean, there's one fantastic kill in here. We're gonna get to it, but it's fantastic for being ridiculous. You know, it's not fantastic for like gore, but it's definitely standout. Yeah,
but it's one of those memorable kills, right? That you know, a lot of the movies have these standout, you know, kills that really you take with you, and this certainly has one.
Arguably the most standout kill in the entire franchise.
I don't know. It's so really we're down to pretty much the hardcore Friday the 13th fans are the ones hanging on and really being loyal to the series at this point. And even Frank Mancuso Jr., who came on in the second film and was really the shepherd of this series, even he's pretty much moved on. He's producing an Internal Affairs with Richard Gere and Kim Basinger at the same time. So he's really not that involved in what's going on. He's, you know, trying to hire responsible people where he could check in and keep an eye on things, but he was not as involved as he normally was. And he was trying to break out of the Friday the 13th films and make his own career, which he did, and is continued to be very successful ever since. But so initially the story was Freddy versus Jason. That's rejected. John Carl Buechler, who was the director of Friday the 13th Part 7, comes in and pitches continuing the storylines from Part 7 with Jason stalks Tina to a mental hospital, kind of like which just echoes of Halloween 2. So I'm not sure where that would have gone. They passed on that. There was also, I think, some bad blood between the producer Barbara Sachs and John Carl Buechler from some stuff that had gone on in the seventh film. Lar Park Lincoln, who's the actress who played Tina in Part 7, pitches a storyline with Tina as a mental health professional who's working with the survivors from the other Friday the 13th films. But that kind of echoed
a little familiar.
Sounds a little bit like Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors. So they pass on that. Kevin Spertus, who played Nick in the seventh film, also pitches a story of him being the real Jason, and like everything kind of almost like retelling the seventh film, but as he was the killer. That seems like it was just an actor trying to showcase themselves to me.
Yeah, that sounds like a guy who doesn't have work.
So all of those get rejected. In the meantime, Friday the 13th, the series is happening, which I think came on the air in 1988. Now, I've never actually seen. I mean, I may have seen it a little bit when it first aired, but I don't remember it at all. Have you guys ever seen that?
I have, yes. And I was super excited for it when it was first airing. But I didn't know anything about it. You know, I mean, like back then there wasn't the internet where you were getting like details of what was happening and all that. Like, if you were super ambitious, you were maybe going to the bookstore or wherever and finding a Fangoria magazine and trying to do deep dives that way. But like, you know, there wasn't a whole lot. There weren't a lot of avenues to figure out what was happening. And so I was super excited when I heard about it. I was like, oh, hell yeah. Like a Jason series, right? But it's not a Jason series. It's not a Jason series at all. The fact that it's a Friday the 13th series is bewildering. Like there's not I mean, it's not that it was a bad show. Like it was kind of interesting. But if you're going in thinking like you're going to see a series based around Jason Voorhees and something like that, you're going to be disappointed because it's not what it's about. It's like, it's more like a Warehouse 13 type show, you know, where there's like, you know, kind of different artifacts that are, you know, in this case, possessed or whatever. And, you know, like you're, you know, it's a bit of each episode is kind of the telling of that different artifact. And they don't really link back to Crystal Lake or Jason or anything like that.
Yeah, it's a little misleading to have that.
It is like to say that it's Friday the 13th. And the thing is, I believe even in the opening credits, like they end on, it's like a silhouette of light shooting through a hockey mask. And it's like, you know, like you're really trying to sell this Jason thing, and it's not that at all. And so that was a bit of a bummer. So like, you know, I was disappointed, and I didn't watch the entire series because, you know, I was hoping for something different.
Yeah, well, that series is going on. I think it lasts 3 seasons.
Something like that.
And
oh wow,
one of the directors was Rob Hedden, who had been a writer on, David, one of your favorite shows, MacGyver.
Hey.
Oh,
hey, that's the guy.
You were a MacGyver maniac, weren't you?
I was.
I should have been a bigger MacGyver maniac, but I've seen my share of episodes.
I remember you telling me, and tell me if I'm wrong, that you once shot a shot-for-shot remake of the opening credit sequence, but with you as MacGyver.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's when I was 14.
Yeah,
did that. It's great. I'd do that with my favorite series, though.
Yeah, that's a must.
Did a Home Improvement recreation.
Nice. Greatest American Hero. I feel like that needs to be in there.
Yeah, no, definitely. That was one of my first ones.
A-Team was happening, wasn't it? Anyway, Rob Hedden was one of the directors, and I think Frank Mancuso took a liking to him and got his father, who was Frank Mancuso Sr., who was the president of production at Paramount Pictures through really like the best times of the late 70s and early 80s, and all the way through the 80s, I think. And so they took a look at him and said, I think this is the guy. They make a deal for him, but the idea is like, can we take Jason out of Crystal Lake? Let's do something different. Let's bring him somewhere. And they kind of collectively were like, well, where's the one place he's going to go? Let's take him to New York City. And which sounds like, I mean, it's a little bit of a betrayal because that's what Jason is. He goes around Crystal Lake and he kills camp counselors, right? Or teenagers or whatever. But I think the idea of taking him out of his element, especially what you could do with him in a place like New York, it does leave a lot to the imagination.
And the attitude of what New York is in 1989 is different than it is today too. So New York has its own set of problems and freaks and crime and, you know, just disgustingness, right? This layer of grossness. And so it was like, well, the craziest city on earth, here comes Jason, what's gonna happen? Like, and that, you know, that sounds like a great idea. Like take fish out of water, have him do something. Like I feel like it should have been zanier or sillier. Like if they could spend more time in New York, like somehow he would have accidentally been like given the keys to a penthouse like hotel or something. Like he'd, you know, he'd be stalking somebody and following them, and then I don't know. I just feel like then there would be like a room service guy, and he wouldn't know what to do with the room service guy. He wouldn't kill that guy, but he'd kill somebody else that came to the door. Like just like, and then he just ends up in crazy New York situations. Like that's how I saw this going. Like,
yeah, exactly. Like it's kind of fun and exciting, and like there's so much you could do. And you know, I think they had ideas of like Rob hadn't wanted to take him everywhere. Like everywhere you think of, you know, typical New York City, Times Square, Statue of Liberty, Madison Square Garden, Broadway. Like he has him going through all of that. And
he could be wearing a Cats hat, right? Like he just came out of Cats.
Oh, of course.
You know,
Jason's a big cat fan.
Yeah. But apparently they could only like do Times Square at midnight on a Tuesday, and that's all the amount of time they had to shoot this thing. So
well, that's the big thing about this movie is that, you know, the script that Rob Hedden wrote was probably a $10 million film, right? And the worry is if they give it more money, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to take more of a box office return to make a profit that they weren't confident they were going to get. So they were hesitant to really pull the trigger on that. So they kind of went the other direction and said like, well, why don't we make it about, you know, the cruise ship part, and it's really just on the cruise ship, and we'll forget about him going to New York. He's just like, they're going out, you know, except we don't see the destination, right? Everyone gets killed or the whole story gets resolved before they get to the destination. Yeah. So that was like script 2. And then they decided to kind of merge everything. But the catch was most of the movie is still going to take place on the cruise ship. You're only going to get a week to film in New York. Everything else has to be done in Vancouver. And the budget is $4 million instead of the usual like 3-ish million that the previous films had been.
Wow.
So it kind of is like, okay, you can do it, but we're going to pull the rug out from under you and not really let you do it the way it should be done. You know, Rob Hedden, this is his first feature film. So, you know, had he been more of a veteran, I think he would have, and he said so, he would have put his foot down and really fought to get more time in Manhattan. And if you have to change things to make that happen, he would have. But this was his first movie for a big studio, and he wanted to make a good impression, and he's a team player in general. So, and he already had a relationship with these guys from the series. So he, you know, he just says, okay, well, we'll just make the best movie we can make.
It's competently done.
Well, and that's part of it too, that it much unlike the other movies, like this really looks like a major movie, the way it's, you know, framed and shot and lit. Like it looks, no offense to the previous films, but it does look a step above and beyond those films. So
the gear keeps improving 10 years later, you know, right? Mm-hmm. Like compared to what you can shoot on and what you can do in a post world, right? so it's gonna I remember as I'm watching the film, I'm like trying to remember. I do remember endless amounts of commercials for this movie on TV. Like,
Yeah.
this was the first time I understood who. Like, I probably already knew who Jason was, but like this was a mainstream push back then. Like, it was, so the gags of him in New York with the punks, and then one of the other shots, like, and it was like he's in New York now. Like,
Yeah.
and seeing Times Square and all that, and it's like, and I remember seeing those commercials over and over and over, and like, it's such a, like, this is just a perfect like missed opportunity in some way, right? Like you said, the circumstances of a first time director and studio wanting to make sure that they're not going to go overboard, and it's just sort of like, well, you wanted something different, but you can't quite pay for it. Things cost money.
Yeah.
And this could have been a lot more fun, probably, like you said, because otherwise, I mean, I don't know what, just scrap the whole Manhattan part and make it something else. I don't know, just some sort of boat party, and you could do, I don't know, whatever extra $1,000,000 you'd spend on traveling to New York, put it into some crazy set pieces like on the boat. I don't know, but that's not what they did.
Yeah, I mean, for New York being the big gaggy selling piece for the movie, like, they don't really utilize it that much. I mean, they spend 25 minutes there, and it's a stereotype of New York City. You know, to David's point, they didn't really take advantage of being able to like do any real kind of fun New York gags.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like let's celebrate New York.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, they were relegated to, how much can you film in a week? And in a city like New York, it's not easy. The Times Square scene that they did shoot, took a couple of nights to do, and because there's once it got out that that's what was filming there, and the minute, of course, you see Jason on set, there was 15,000 people trying to cram into the location. Like,
oh wow,
yeah. And that's what, the producer and Rob Hedden were trying to explain to the studio. Like, look, this is a big deal. Like, we need 40 PAs and we need all these police officers. Like, we just need more money. I think they ended up getting like 25,000 additional dollars. So, and they had planned all these big crane shots and everything. And so they got a few, and the shot, as they approach New York, and as when Jason gets out and he looks and he sees the billboard of the hockey player, like a cute little moment there. Yeah. And then, of course, with the punks, that scene.
Yeah. Well, like, I want to see him interact with, like, those silver robot guys that stand still.
I was gonna say a mime.
Yeah. Like,
you want to see him buying a hot dog?
Buying a hot dog, going to a Mets
or
game.
Taking one. Go to a Mets game.
Like, he could have been on a subway, and like a Yankees fan and a Mets fan could have gotten a fight, and then he could have killed them both or something like that. And then like, yeah, so much fun.
Yeah. It's just frustrating because it's like, you're right there. You're right on the edge. You have the idea, you have the location, but it just wasn't enough. So,
yeah. Oh well. And like, a prostitute should have tried to pick him up at a certain point. Hey, baby,
and that's who he shows the mask to, and then she runs away or something.
Right? Yeah. All the dumb stereotype things of New York.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, one thing that they did have on their side was that they did decide to bring Kane Hodder back. So he's the first actor to return as Jason Voorhees in the entire series, and he would ultimately play Jason 4 times.
Wow.
This is the second of the series. So he's he's pretty much considered like the Jason Voorhees. And I think he does have the body type, the body size, the intensity, the physical presence that you need for that character. So it really was perfect casting. And Kane is very passionate about playing Jason, and he lobbied to get the role back and really wanted to continue with the series. And I think it was a smart move because a lot of the, up until the ending, at least, like, he's the guy who knows how Jason works. He's the one who figured out how to do some of his mannerisms and how he physically holds himself and the way he, kills people. And it's Kane was the guy.
But with this, with Kane back from what, the 5th movie? Is that what he
The
was?
No,
7th.
He started in the 7th.
Okay. I thought he skipped a couple. So he was just in the last one. But like, they definitely trying to change the lore a little bit here too, right? Are we to infer that like Jason's sort of laughing at a certain point and he's the one making the chanting noise, like instead of the Kiki Mama, it's like Chi Chi, and like it's a different noise.
It's a little bit different, and I think that to me it never sounded like like it never sounded like that. It always sounded like like it just did.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's the thing. Well, I think you told me what what it was being said in the first movie. I was like, oh, like you're like, okay, that's what it's supposed to be. I always thought it was like a chi.
Yeah.
But like his first kill, I feel like he was making like a noise of like enjoying the kill or something like that. Like there was some personality injected into his kill. Or am I crazy?
In the first one? In like
in this movie, like one of the first kills, maybe the original boat where he's resurrected. I don't remember. Does this not ring of? You never got the sense they were trying to like change him a little bit? Like,
well, they've changed him pretty much every movie. They tweak the backstory, they change his look every movie.
Right.
So yeah, maybe I didn't pick up on that, but that's not to say that wasn't there.
Yeah, I didn't pick up on that either, but
I'd have to go back and watch it again, which I'm not going to do. So never mind. So don't even worry about
it. which I will never do again. But
you don't want to do a marathon
until I have the next marathon, and then you're forced to do it.
Yeah. Good luck. I could.
Yeah, we've got.
Yeah, gee, you didn't get the sense they were trying to like give him a little personality, like Freddy, kind of, like a.
I think you get more personality. I think part of that is Kane Hodder of just injecting a little more. Yeah, I agree with that. I think that there's a little more life to him in this movie than a lot of the previous ones. I think Kane just is more, it's an example of him being more comfortable in the role. So he's starting to do little mannerisms and little things that make Jason feel like more of a character instead of just this vacant sort of monster.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, maybe that's all it is.
Yeah.
It's all in the Hodder performance.
So then we've got, we've got a slew of teens who most of them really don't have much of a personality. But the cast is, it's led by Jensen Daggett, who plays Rennie, and Scott Reeves, Peter Mark Richmond, who plays the villainous uncle character, VC Dupree, who plays Julius the boxer, which we'll come back to him in a bit, and Martin Cummings, and one familiar face, Kelly Hu.
Kelly Hu.
From who we would, I think, mostly know from X-Men 2. And
yeah, I mean, she's done a ton of voices, like in video games and things like that.
Oh yeah, Kelly Hu's had a great career, and she's been on TV and films, and was one of those people that this was just kind of the starting point for her, but definitely had a successful run after this. And probably, I don't think this is like one of her high points that she points to, but but this is where she got her start. So I did catch also once Jason's in New York and he goes into the restaurant and the cook comes out and gets into an altercation with him. The cook was the stunt coordinator, Ken Kurtzinger, who would go on to play Jason in Jason versus Freddy. So nice little moment there. But What do we think about these teens? It feels like each movie progressively gets like we care less and less about what happens to them, about them as characters. We know less and less about them. What do you guys think about this one?
I mean, all the teens in this one just seem like teens we've seen in all these movies before. Like they're not. There's not an original character in any of them. Like every single one is like a carbon copy of someone that we've taken from more or less the most recent Nightmare on Elm Street movie. I mean, they all seem very familiar. Like the last two Nightmare on Elm Street movie kids, but again, this is Paramount trying to jockey for some of that money, right? Some of that. Mm-hmm. So they're just rinse repeating.
Yeah. It's really the only and I think some of it, I will say that it sounds like Rob Hedden did write a lot more characterization in for these guys, but it all got cut out. And it's going to. That's not what people are here for, but you still, at the same time, you want to care about. This is where I feel like this one in particular got lost, because there's no real even attempt to care about these people,
Yeah.
Like, you kind of like Julius. I don't think you particularly like Sean, the lead male character. He's just generic boyfriend type.
Yep.
Right. Rennie, a little different. I think you get a new backstory with her, that she, a backstory with her having been on Crystal Lake as a kid with her uncle, who is forcing her to learn how to swim, knowing that there's this myth of Jason under the water, but he pushes her in the water anyway. And of course, she encounters Jason under the water, traumatizing her forever, kind of like my alligator story.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly like that.
Exactly like that. But so that creates an ongoing storyline through the movie that we keep coming back to, that she keeps having these visions. She's got this connection with Jason, and she keeps seeing the little boy Jason, in her mind. And is she going crazy? Is it real? Is it not real? So we're continuing that supernatural element that was started in the seventh film. What do you guys think about that storyline? Did that work? Was that interesting?
I like the idea of them trying to, I don't know, add a little dimension to the whole thing, add that supernatural element. I don't think I liked how it ended up, but I'm not even sure about the ending. If that is that him? Is he?
Yeah.
Is that supposed to be him, or is she viewing that? Did he? Because it would have just been toxic waste. He would have just completely been burnt up, or melted.
According to the filmmakers, the ending is his spirit, the toxic waste, that nasty New York toxic waste, comes rushing through the sewers, as it does every night, right? It was like every night at midnight.
Every night,
gotta clear the pipes, guys. Gotta clear the pipes.
Standard.
It's kind of like what we do here at the studio at ReconCine Studios.
That's right.
It comes rushing down, and it blasts Jason, and conveniently doesn't touch Rennie or Sean.
Yeah.
And he's melted away, but what's left is this an intact little boy. So what that was his spirit being released, right? And that he's been freed of this monster. And he's dead. He's still dead, but he's back to where he was before this all happened.
Why? What's the point?
Why?
What's the point?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Just use the toxic waste to kill Jason.
Kill him. Don't do the spiritual part.
Just melt Jason. Oh, okay, cool. Got it. Jason's
I get it.
Melted until he comes back. The soul of Jason comes back and Jason goes to hell.
Yeah.
It feeds into Jason Goes to Hell a lot better if you just melt Jason than bring the damn. I mean, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like trying to bookend the kid thing with like the end of the first movie to this, like it just doesn't.
Well, Rob really wanted to try to link it back to the first movie.
Sure.
So,
I totally get it.
yeah.
But why? Like what? You're not gaining anything. What you're gaining are raised eyebrows and like people like, what? So I don't, it doesn't quite make sense.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. I don't think it worked either, but, David, how do you feel about that? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I don't think I like it. I don't know. I get the idea of trying to reinvigorate it and all that, but it's just like execution wise, I don't think it really works. So yeah, I don't know. Like and it's still like it's just confusing for the uninitiated. Like you don't know.
Yeah.
Like that. Oh, so that's that's Jason's dead body now 30, 40 years after he was originally killed. Like,
yeah. And you're
like,
you're talking about a Jason from a movie that didn't even center around, like Jason wasn't even the killer. So like,
yeah.
Like I get that the stories connect because it's the death of the child, but like you've moved on somewhat from that whole deal. I don't know.
Yeah, we've moved so far away from that
yeah.
story element of Jason that it's like, I mean,
like when's the last time
movie?
Well, do they mention like there's a kid who I mean, I know that the last one I can think of is like part 2
I think
where
the
sitting
sixth
around
one,
the campfire.
Yeah, part 2. I mean, they definitely do through 4. I feel like they mentioned it in 6. Might not have come up in 7. We should probably rewatch that as a group just to double check that.
Let's do a marathon. Dave, we're coming over.
All right. 7, 8, and that's it. Yeah, so
does Jason did Jason take over his mom's mission, or is his mission just to get revenge for his mother then? Like
that's the idea behind part 2 is that
yeah,
he was like, he saw his mom get killed and he, for whatever reason, wasn't dead in the water and saw her get killed and then was going to take revenge out on on the camp. Right. After seeing them kill his mom. And then it gets into like
pretty loosey-goosey after that.
Yeah, hockey masks and supernatural, and this dude can't be killed even with a hatchet to the head, and
and he seemingly is like the Flash, like he just appears in places, right?
Absolutely.
Well, and that's, they kind of embrace that in this one, and we brought that up in other films, that, and actually in the Friday the 13th video game, that's a thing you can do. You can just transport like across the game,
the map.
Yeah, the map. And they're embracing that mysticism, sort of, that he can just like, wherever he's going to go, he can get there as fast as he wants. And we're not going to linger on that or talk about it. It just is.
Which I kind of like too. Like, again, make him a little more dynamic. Like,
yeah,
there's no getting around, like, him navigating the bowels of a ship. Like, he's this giant, he's just giant dude. He's 6'5" or whatever, like, and just a monster. It's like that he would never be able to do that quickly.
Yeah.
but Jason really, he can get where he needs to go. Gets to the top of a ladder, like, no problem. I don't know. It's pretty neat.
Just to rewind for a minute, going back to the beginning of the movie, which is the only part of the movie that feels like your traditional Friday the 13th, right? Like Jason.
Well, yeah, because it starts at the lake before
it's fine. We're at Crystal Lake with 2 teens on a yacht, like
on a boat, It's
a
before
very nice boat.
it's before the whole idea that Crystal Lake is actually an open lake connected to the Atlantic.
Yeah.
Which
is where I was going.
it must be part of the Great Lakes, right? Like
Yeah.
it's got to establish that.
Well, wait. Crystal Lake is one of the Great Lakes.
There you go.
Right?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's Lake Superior and Lake Michigan and Crystal Lake.
That's right there
Those
next
are
to it.
Those are the three lakes.
Those are the three. But I mean, at least the Great Lakes are like, they're connected to the Atlantic through like the St. Lawrence River, right? So, like you could technically get from the Great Lakes to the Atlantic.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's never been established for Crystal Lake at all.
Not until now.
Lake.
Crystal Lake used to be a small lake.
Yeah.
Now it's a Great Lake connected to the Atlantic.
And you can get yachts and cruise liners into Crystal Lake. I mean, so, we see these two teens in the beginning of the movie you're basically your traditional kills. Jason is resurrected via electricity, right? Like was it the anchor or something that clips an electric wire that's down there where he is and sparks him back to life because he was dead again from Tina. But
yeah, because you would probably run all the electrical wires through the lake.
And the town, look, I have an island and there's lakes within that island. And when I had the cables run, that was how we did it. We've had no problems.
Okay. What you have is an atoll.
This is the 8th movie. We said what the first 3 are basically all within a year of each other. How many?
Oh God, I have to remember now. Well, part 2 is like 1 year later, and then 3 is immediately after 2, and 4 is I think a few weeks later.
4 is a few weeks later. Then we get the Corey Feldman time jump,
right? Which is an unknown amount of time.
Unknown, but at least 10 years. Would you say?
Sure.
Go from Corey Feldman to John Shepard. It looks like 10 years, but
10 years.
He's got to take Gymkata lessons. Like there's a lot of stuff that has to happen.
And then
in those 10 years.
And then when does 6 take place? Soon, a couple of years after that, right?
6
4 years before 5.
Yeah. Oh, it's 4 years before.
I'm just kidding.
No, wait, stop. Yeah.
Sorry. So, I'm joking.
And then 7 happens.
Yeah, 6 is not long after 5. It's again unknown because 7 is a whole separate thing. It's like years
probably later,
pretty quickly after.
And then there's the flashback of Rennie as a child at post of the 7th movie.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, which he was already a legend. So you got to figure 10, 15 years after that, or 10 years after that moment, she's going to graduate high school.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, this movie
almost
takes place. This takes place in the late 90s.
No, it wouldn't. It would. I have to go back because I think somewhere there's a 5-year time jump.
I think that's in between 4 and 5, right? I mean, I think originally
be.
That's what we talked about, even though it seems like he is older. It's not really a 10-year, it's a 5-year time jump.
But some of the others are so compact that I think we're almost on the correct timeline by now.
Oh.
If she's graduating high school, right? She's 17, 18?
18, yeah.
So the first movie was 9 years prior to this one. So how old is she in that flashback? 9?
Well, all we really need to know is that it lines up perfectly for Jason X. So
yeah, that's an easy one.
I'm trying to figure out what's the real time, because
it would be interesting though.
Is her flashback post the 7th movie, or is it just the lore of he's always down there since the first movie?
No, my understanding of it was her flashback was from when he was initially down there as a kid after the first act.
That's why she always sees the kid.
Right. Again, tying to the first movie. So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right,
But
never mind.
So that would happen somewhere prior to the events of part 2.
Gotcha. So her flashback is earlier than most of the other movies.
Yeah.
Could even be the first movie.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes. The ending is the
Interesting.
first movie.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
All right. Never mind.
So, all right. So
They should all have cell phones by now. That's all I'm saying.
they would have the
should.
Zach Morris cell phones.
Absolutely.
So suddenly Crystal Lake has a tributary down to the ocean in Manhattan, and it makes no sense. I don't know how they could even like do that without some kind of like explanation, but
and they're in open water, and suddenly they're passing the Statue of Liberty. Like they just spit
Right.
out of nowhere. Like, oh, here we are, guys.
Yeah.
like
Finally.
what angle are you coming from?
Yeah.
Because they're
There's New
coming.
York.
It looks like they're coming from Europe. You know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
they just crossed the Atlantic.
That's so silly.
Yeah. But so we see all these teenagers, and how do you like that subplot between Sean and his dad, the admiral?
Yeah, that made a lot of sense. That was it.
Yeah.
That was another necessary addition.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just to give him a little extra to do.
No, son, that's
pressure.
not how you start the boat. You give the maritime. Burp, burp. Like, okay, dude, whatever, guy.
Yeah.
You take your ferry. It's not. That's the thing. Is it even a yacht? It's not a cruise. It's like a ferry. When I look at it, I think it's like a ferry. You know, like they're ferrying across.
There's a reason for that. So they did have an actual like cruise ship booked for that, and then a week before they started shooting, there was something happened, and they lost that ship, and they basically had to get what they could get, which was something that looks more like a ferry and is a lot smaller. So that's why you never see the full ship. You just see like the front part of the side or the back or the interiors. That's it.
But the way they use the ship, I mean, that ship has what, like, I mean, when is it JJ is down there shooting her rock video?
Yeah.
I mean, it feels like
man,
that thing's
great.
like 10 stories deep into the lake. I'm like, what is happening here?
Yeah.
It's got a boiler room, this boat.
It's a mix. It's got everything from the traditional boiler room of your I don't know, of not a cruise ship looking kind of boiler room. And then you've got a sauna, you've got a disco, right?
You've got a room with a blanket that they've put on the floor to be a boxing rink.
Yeah.
Did anybody notice they just threw a blanket on the ground?
Just a blanket.
They're like, we're just gonna put this bed blanket on the ground. We're gonna pretend that's the boxing rink. Let's go.
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
And you get all your teens like doing their separate things. You know, one is a boxer. You've got the nerdy filmmaker. You've got the rock who's filming the music video for the rock star. You've got the, kind of nasty girl, the bad girl, the bully type, and Kelly Hughes, who's sort of a tag along with her.
She wants to be cool like her.
Yeah.
But she doesn't want to do cocaine. No coke for Kelly.
No coke.
No coca.
And then you've got the good girl, Rennie. And Rennie's teacher, who seems like her mom but isn't her mom, and then the uncle, was he the principal?
I don't know.
Dean, maybe.
I forget. I don't
know.
So they're all there, and of course, I love the shot of Jason like popping out of the water and climbing up on the ship. It's such a star
like strike a pose.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm gonna pull myself
here.
up. I was like, at some point I was watching and I was like, man, I know he's getting tired holding himself up on that chain right now. His biceps are shaking.
Kane Hodder, I don't know. He's just like, it almost like if he had long hair, he would have like blown, tossed it around like a Hurt Plus commercial,
That being said, I never got to say this when we were talking about Kane Hodder. I do think Kane Hodder is the best, Jason.
Yeah.
Just his size and bulk, mannerisms, like he's quintessential, I feel like.
Yeah. I mean, he's made a career off of it, really. And
Yeah.
I like him. I like Ted White from the fourth film too. But
Yeah.
so then, Jason starts his killing spree through the boat, and really, that's most of the movie. Is Jason takes a cruise ship.
Yeah.
That's what it should have been.
Yeah.
And one by one, he's gonna go through and I think some of these kills really would have benefited from more gore. It's hard to watch like a PG version of Friday the 13th movie. It's like, the blood isn't there. And I think Rob Hedden was smart that he knew what the MPAA was going to do. Like, he knew they hate Friday the 13th movies. So he would shoot different versions of scenes, and one with gore, one with like medium gore, one with basically no gore. And he knew that the MPA would want the one with no gore. Sure. But Paramount, Frank Mancuso, when he saw dailies, he's like, no, what are we doing? Like, give me the bloodiest one that you have.
Yeah.
And then it'd go to the ratings board, and they're like, oh no, you can't have that. You're rated X. So you'd have to go back. But thankfully he shot all those. So
are they available to see anywhere? No. Is there an uncut NPAA X-rated version?
No, but that would be, I wish they would do that. I wish they would go through, now that they know like how much money's in these movies, go through and really re-edit them. Especially part 7 was one we know for sure that there was a lot more gore, and like put it in there and make it that the X-rated version that, like, I mean,
it wouldn't be X-rated.
Well, or anymore. It wouldn't be now. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is it's so tame now.
Yeah. I don't know. Most of the deaths, most of the deaths in this movie are all real. I mean, they've got the making of they've got the opportunity to make them some of them pretty fantastic. Like the sauna room one could have been really dope.
Yeah.
But
he punches through him with one of the rocks from the sauna,
rock, dude.
A sauna rock.
Yeah.
And you see the fire inside the carcass too.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty decent, but
and then they cut to the guy screaming. He's just like, like,
yeah,
he just punched a hole through you with a burning rock.
Yeah.
The character who was supposed to be an Olympic diver, but that whole storyline got cut, who gets tossed and then run around like a corkscrew down the pole towards the end. That was cool.
Yep.
There's some good impaling happening.
Well, that's what he likes to do, that Jason's big on the impaling. Like, there's a lot of, right in the beginning, that stabbing in the gut with a harpoon gun, spearing through the chest, which, by the way, in those opening kills, the guy who gets killed, he originally had a much gorier death. And I had thought as a kid, maybe that's why it got to me, was those rubber like hoses on the harpoon gun.
Mm-hmm.
I had thought that those were like his intestines.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, oh man,
that's a different vibe. Yeah,
not his intestines. And
dude,
then when
I've seen so many more intestines now. I know that those weren't them.
When he kills the girl, it's like he has to reach down and he's like pokes down at her.
It's so weird. Like, she's sitting
so
in the she's like down below the porthole or whatever. I don't know what again, I don't know ship lingo. I think we've discussed this before, but just like standing over what for like an eternity.
Yeah.
Like, she could have just rolled over and like crawled away.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I'm just going to sit here and yell continuously for 5 minutes.
Yeah. And then it's like he's got to like lean down, and it's just it was awkward.
His knees all pop. He's old. It's like,
but Jason's back would be hurting. but that's Jim and Susie, those characters, how they get taken out. JJ, the rock star with the getting head smashed in with a guitar, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so lots of crazy deaths.
Yeah.
But what's the what's the craziest one? What do you think?
Oh, definitely the favorite death of the movie, I would say on everybody's part, is Julius in back in New York.
Take your best shot. Motherfucker.
You know, he's the boxer. We've had that set up a couple of times throughout the movie. We have the fake out that he got thrown off the boat, but he's still alive. He reappears later. He's one of the last survivors of this group as they, make their way through New York City, and Jason tracks him down up on the roof of a building, and he's going to put his boxing skills to the test. And I counted 59 punches. I've also heard it's actually 72 punches that he throws.
Well,
and
if it had gone the distance, Julius would have won the fight.
Yeah. He had Jason on the run for sure. And Jason turns around with one. Julius he's spent. He has no more energy. He's punched himself out, and he says, "Give me your best shot." And Jason certainly does, and with one punch, knocks his head right off, and
right off the shoulders.
Decapicam
following the head as it flies off the top of the building.
Yeah,
through the air
and into a dumpster.
Right into the New York dumpsters.
Yeah. But that's like a classic Jason moment. Like that's the kind of creative kills I think we want to see here instead of the usual just. But we've seen it so many times that like just a stabbing is boring.
No, that kill is 110% like the best thing going in this movie. I think. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. That's the moment. This movie's got a total of 43 kills, which brings the running total. My count is up to
142
right now.
It has 43 kills. That seems high.
It does
for us to be at 142.
There's like it's mentioned that there are other students, and there's like 18 other students on the ship.
Oh, they don't make it.
Right, and then there's like 4 other people in the restaurant that he supposedly kills. So if you start counting all that stuff, like it adds up pretty quickly. So
got it. So he only had 99 kills through 2 through 7.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Really ballooned up the kill count.
I mean, some of them it's only a handful of people, right? At the like in 7, there's not that many characters, right? In part 4, and
Yeah, no, you're right.
So in some of the next couple, I think like he really goes on some big killing sprees, like, and then it's like if he blows something up and there's like 25 people in there, boom, there you go.
How do you even count the deaths in 9?
We'll get there. We'll get there next year.
Not soon enough.
And another one, Charles McCulloch, the villainous uncle character for Rennie, gets his comeuppance later on when he gets drowned in, you guessed it, rat-infested toxic waste.
Yeah, that's a shitty way to go.
Yeah.
That's awful. That's I was like thinking of just the stunt work of that. I'm like, that's like you got to be put in this thing, and you got to trust that you're gonna get pulled out, and you got to play. You got to play like you're dead. And like, that I don't know if I could do that stunt.
Yeah, that'd be pretty sketchy.
No,
that's
it's pretty nasty. And I think like the Peter Mark Richmond, the actor, who's an established like theater actor, he was a not a major name, but he was a regular working actor at this point, and I think his team was like, why are you doing this movie? And what, I think he did, at least a couple of takes of that, and that was enough for him.
They got it. He did
Yeah,
good.
they got it.
They got it. No, you don't need too many.
Yeah, and then we kind of talked about the ending already as they work their way through New York, and one by one or in groups, the kids are killed and eliminated, and then it just comes down to Rennie and Sean and the dog who survives, who take care of Jason. And they really wanted to make sure, like, what is a way that we could make sure Jason is killed off forever and make it visible that he's done. That's it. Even though it's like the door's still kind of open for bringing him back, so you always got to leave it a little bit open. But that was not the intention. Was that was it? Unless this did phenomenal numbers, this was going to be the last one. So, and we end in New York City.
Yeah,
Good old New York
with a great tune.
Why wouldn't you?
With a great tune, "Darkest Side of the Night" by Metropolis, which opens and closes our film. Great rock track. The music in this one is, I think for the first time, we've not used a Harry Manfredini piece of music at all in this film, and he's not credited at all. And Fred Mullen is the composer, and also kind of handled getting together some of the traditional soundtrack songs for this one. So different sound. We don't get the traditional Jason sound effects and the we don't get any of that. So yeah,
it's weird.
But a little weird to not have it. It feels like it should have been there at some point. All right, the movie is done. They're going back and forth with the MPAA to get it down to an R rating, and I don't think anyone's like totally happy with the movie, but I think it's the best movie that they could make with the money that they had and what was available to them. They've got an ad campaign going, which you can find online everywhere, with Jason kind of tearing through the I Love New York logo, which got them into trouble from city officials. I mean, it's a great poster and totally like a great tease for the audience. But I guess they did not get the rights to use that image. So
oh no.
They had to reverse all that campaign. And then you get the posters with him kind of peering over the skyline of the city. So that was what we ended up with. But dare we talk a little box office glory?
Sure.
I think we should.
Here we go. Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. Paramount is counting on a number here, or this is it for the franchise. It had a $4.2 million budget. It opens July 28th, 1989 at number 5. Number 5 opened up against Turner and Hooch. So not a good debut. It ends up right between When Harry Met Sally, which is in its 3rd week, and Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, which is in its 6th week. Of course, Batman's still doing amazing numbers in its 6th week. That came in at number 3. Jason Takes Manhattan earned $6.2 million on its opening weekend, a total domestic run of $14.3 million, which is down from Part 7, which was $19.1. It ends up at number 68 of 1989, right between Kickboxer and The Wizard.
Oh, boy.
Wizard, like the Fred Savage, the Wizard?
The Fred Savage Wizard.
That's,
That
that surprises me, because that movie was terrible, but it was pretty hyped.
Yeah, but it didn't, box office wise, it didn't didn't do that well.
I think
Still
kids
was
our
Friday-
age were psyched for
The
Super
Power
Mario
Glove.
3 and put the Power Glove. So
Yeah,
that was
yeah,
but like
absolutely.
but audiences didn't care. Like nobody went to go see it.
I think I saw it at the theater actually, but I was one of 7 people.
You know when I saw The Wizard for the first time?
Never.
2022.
Wow,
Oh.
really?
Yeah.
Good for you. How's it hold up?
Not well. So Friday the 13th Part 7 came in at number 51 of 88. Now we're here at number 68 of 89. So we're continuing the downward slide. Batman, The Last Crusade, and Lethal Weapon 2 were tops at the box office that year. Now, ranking amongst the series, box office wise, this one comes in at number 12, which is dead last, the worst of the series.
Oh, man.
Coming up right behind Jason Goes to Hell.
Wow.
Shoot.
So we're really.
So that's it. No more Jason movies. They're done.
That's
That's
what they
it.
would
It's
lead
over.
you to believe.
You just
Well-
said if it doesn't hit its number, that's it. So
In a way,
luckily,
and that's
this
it.
is farewell to Jason Voorhees. It's been a wild ride. So glad we can cover your movies here on ReconCinemation.
We'll see you next Friday
just
the
a
13th.
minute.
What? There's more to say?
Oh, yeah, there's more.
Oh no!
This
What
is
do we-
only the last Paramount
Yeah,
film.
we're just getting started.
Oh no!
Paramount holds to their word that this would be the last one. Again, it clearly it made money. It made about $10 million, but it wasn't what they wanted, and they would end up, and we'll get more into this, but on the next one. But they end up selling the rights to New Line Cinema, who is also the holder of the rights to Freddy Krueger.
Uh-oh. Here
So
we go.
setting the table for that showdown to happen, although it would take a little while. But yeah, this is it for Paramount. And, as well as the movies did, they just had enough and they wanted to walk away. And it always been, they always treated it as some kind of embarrassment. They never really when they promote Paramount films, they would never promote anything like any of these movies in with their regular library. Like you're going to put Beverly Hills Cop and Top Gun and An Officer and a Gentleman and Friday the 13th Part 7 or 6 or 8, not going to happen. And like we talked about, they're competing with Freddy Krueger. Nightmare on Elm Street 5 would come out 2 weeks later, but that would also be a big time failure at the box office. So, both films, overexposure, just overkill on everything. With Paramount selling the rights to New Line, that also opens the door for the return of one of the original creators of the franchise, Sean Cunningham, who we haven't talked about since the first film, maybe the second, is going to return to the franchise as well. So we will get to that when we cover Jason Goes to Hell next year. And of course, where they did make some money, or more money, was on home video, as we mentioned. When this came out on video, it was a big time release. Teenagers and kids our age were snatching it up regularly. So, these movies did make a lot on video rentals. Overall, what do you guys think? How did it hold up today? Do you think this movie worked? Did it not work? Or did parts of it work? What do you think? David, what about you?
It's not great, but it's fine. It's like the other movies. Does it hold up? It's as you don't see these movies like this anymore, right? They go, movies today are super gory, super just ratcheting up the violence and blood and stuff. This is obviously limited, and it's the way it was made and all of that. But yeah, I don't know. So it's cute. It's but it's inoffensive. It's kind of blah. You don't get the selling of the Manhattan is a big bait and switch almost for you.
Yeah.
So it's kind of there's a betrayal there, I think, for the audience, and doesn't go far enough. If it really wants to change things, it doesn't go there. So yeah, this is a tough one to get behind. It's like the other movies.
I I feel differently, but I don't think it's like terrible. I mean, it's not great for sure. It's not, but it's not like it's poorly made. It's just they're kind of just handcuffed by everything that's going on. They don't have much of a budget. For whatever reason, to David's point, they did decide to pull the plug on, because monetarily they couldn't afford to spend more time in New York, and that's why people are tuning into this one, right? And to see how Jason interacts with New York, and they just don't give him enough. They don't give you enough.
Yeah.
Like it's just what does make it interesting is it's not like any of the other Friday the 13th movies. Like, it almost doesn't feel like a Friday the 13th movie until you see Jason here and there. But it's, it's different in that way. But yeah, unless you want to see some dude get his head knocked off on top of the building in New York, there's not a whole lot of reasons to tune into this one.
Yeah.
I think you get Freddy and Jason in Madison Square Garden, and then the Ghostbusters come and capture them.
Capture both, and it's a done deal.
And then the Ghostbusters win.
Oh, that'd be amazing. Yeah, I agree. I think this one, it's tough because it, like we've been saying, it's really tame for a Friday the 13th movie. Plus, you have the bait and switch of really not getting New York, that is the title of the movie, and what is advertised. And instead, you get 60% of it, 70% of it on a cruise ship on the boat, and and I understand that, like, why that happened, but an audience shouldn't have to understand that or think about that. And I think that was the biggest thing that they walked away with, like, oh, there wasn't really any Manhattan,
right?
So I think that holds true today, that watching some of these movies, if there's not an interesting catch with them, and in the earlier films it was the kills were the catch. In the seventh movie, the sixth movie, it's the satirical approach. In the seventh movie, it's Carrie versus Jason as your hook. Here, your hook isn't really your hook because your hook doesn't really deliver. So that's, I think, the problem with this one. I think the pluses are you have Kane Hodder, who's great. You have a couple of kills which are cool. It looks really professional and looks better than a lot of the other movies do. But I don't know. So I don't think this one holds up, but it's also, you kind of have to see it. Like, if you're watching the other Friday the 13th, complete it. And I didn't feel like the ending was like as powerful as it could have been if you're really going to end these.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely can't get to hell without going through Manhattan. So
exactly.
You gotta see this one.
Yeah. Said from a true Texan.
Yeah, buddy.
So that's the end of Paramount Pictures. We bid you adieu. And I don't know, this one, I rank this movie probably this is bottom tier for me. So out of the 12, this is probably like 10 or 11.
Oof.
I would probably say this one is like 11 to me, and with Jason Goes to Hell being 12.
I think that's fair.
Whoa.
I would say the same.
Yeah. David,
So
where do you rank it
that.
Of the 8? Generally, what spot you think?
Of the 8
that you've seen?
I
think David's been pretty clear about they're all just one number, and the number's not good.
The bottom 5 are the same movie, so like 7 out of 8 probably.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
What's 8 out of 8? What's the eighth one?
The one
What's
where
the
he's
worst
not
one out of them all so far?
the one where he's not the
killer.
5?
Yeah. 5. Yeah. That sucks.
Yeah.
Another
that
betrayal.
Sucks.
That's pretty bad.
That annoyed the fucking shit out of me watching
I'd
that
probably put that in my 10 spot, but yeah, it's
yeah.
That one's not great.
I still have to see. I've seen part 9, so I need to see Jason X and Jason Goes to Hell. and
Well, nine is Jason Goes to Hell.
oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
I've seen that.
Okay. Well,
Sorry,
we'll be
yeah.
covering it on the next Friday the 13th.
Then I
But
gotta see Jason X, and then what else is there? after
Freddy
Jason
versus
X?
Jason.
Freddy versus
And then
Jason.
the-
Fraser.
And then
the
there's the
remake.
there's
Yeah.
the remake, and then there's all the fan movies.
No, we're not doing those.
I keep
The,
bringing them
I
up
will-
just to.
I will
just to
say-
mess with-
David, you're gonna have a really good time with Jason X. That is a fun movie, and there's there's people who hate it, but I think the movie is hilarious and fun. So
If it's supposed to be funny, I'm in. Go for it.
I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know how it can't be funny. It's.
Yeah.
I mean, it's total
Like if it's designed that way,
Jason
Yeah.
in space. Like you're making
yeah,
a goof ass movie.
that sounds
Yeah.
crazy.
So yeah.
I'm in.
but we'll regardless of how good or not as good the films are, I love talking about these movies with you guys, and we are deep into it. We've got, I think, 4 more to go, and then we'll wrap up the Friday the 13th series. Before we go, is it time? Should we circle back to 6 Degrees of ReconCinemation?
Yeah, have you guys figured this one out yet? Can you get?
I've got it.
I got
Oh.
it quick. I got it, and I got it quick. I think you're trying to be tricky, David, but this one's pretty easy to figure out.
Oh shit. Okay. Well, guys, can you get me from Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, to When Harry Met Sally?
I can quickly. I don't know how quickly you can, John, but
Brent, you go for it first.
I'm gonna do one movie that has both Kelly Hu and Meg Ryan in it, called The Doors, which came out in 1991. So Kelly Hu is in that. She plays a character named Dorothy, and Meg Ryan's obviously in that because she plays the love interest of Jim Morrison, and Meg Ryan's in When Harry Met Sally.
Wow.
Wow.
Brent,
Okay.
that is impressive. I did not recall Kelly Hu being in The Doors.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
That's a maneuver you just did. That was
That's
fantastic.
beautiful.
There you go. All right, John, your turn.
Yeah, mine's not nearly as quick, but okay. Kane Hodder from Friday the 13th Part 8 is in Jason X with David Cronenberg. David Cronenberg directed Videodrome, which stars James Woods, who co-starred with Robert De Niro in, I think, a few movies, but Casino, Once Upon a Time in America. Robert De Niro is in The Godfather Part 2 with Bruno Kirby Jr., who is in When Harry Met Sally.
Oh wow. Look
Yep.
at that. Okay. Wow.
A lot
I
of
like that
paths, I guess.
Yeah, a lot of roots to it. That's
Yeah.
exciting. Wow. You guys are good at this.
I
Oh, boy.
probably in college watched The Doors 75 times.
Oh,
I
geez.
had it on Laserdisc.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I don't know. I went through a phase where I really, really loved Doors music, really, and
Oh, me
and
too. Yeah.
I wasn't like
Still.
necessarily. I don't know. That's Oliver Stone, right? And it's just like I watched that movie a shit ton.
Wow.
I have to be in the right zone to listen to Doors music. There's a time and place for it.
Yeah, I don't listen to it nearly as much anymore, but there was a time in college where I was like, yeah, I want to break on through to the other side. Let's go.
Oh my God. All right. Well, it was great looking back at this one. We are right in the middle of Shocktober, a super Shocktober 2023. So stay tuned. Check us out. We're on social media at ReconCinemation Podcast on, what is it? X now? X, Twitter, I don't know. Whatever that one is, Instagram. And you can catch us there. Check out our archives at ReconCinemation.com. If you would, give us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts. That means a lot for the podcast numbers. And thank you to our friends, E.K. Wimmer for the theme song, Curtis Moore for the posters, as usual. And we will see you on the next episode of our Shocktober-themed ReconCinemation.
Take care.
Bye now.
the newest horror hit of the season, Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. Sometimes you just can't keep a dead man down. This time, he's taking a little cruise to the Big Apple.
He came down the river and he's got on board.
But don't expect the Love Boat.
This voyage is doomed.
Don't pack a life preserver.
He's come back and you're all gonna die.
Jason's booking them on a one-way trip to hell.
Mayday. Hello?
I don't understand what's happening to me.
Next stop on this chilling journey. New York, New York, and a whole new reign of terror.
Give me the police.
Start spreading the news.
You don't understand. There is a maniac trying to kill us. Welcome to New York.
Everyone's favorite maniac is painting the town red. Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. And to help scare up plenty of customer awareness, we're offering this chilling 6-foot Jason banner for every video store. Plus, here's a blood-curdling free offer that's just too frightening to pass up. Just buy 3 video cassettes of this all-new Friday the 13th thriller and get a set of specially designed Jason hockey mask decorative lights in the pre-pack. Now is the time to turn New York's newest problem into your newest home video money machine. With Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan.